How's everybody this morning?
I'm happily married.
Maybe.
What do you mean, maybe?
Maybe.
Are you happily married?
Huh?
Are you happily married?
I'm married. Somebody asked me.
That's
There's
not what I asked you.
uh, somebody asked me did what did they ask me was they share the same year with me and Rhonda, in terms they got married in 95 too.
Mhm.
And so he asked the question. He said, so what are y'all going to do? And I said, well, I hope we're still married, and then we'll go from there. So anyway, so good morning.
See,
Yeah, I know. I'm just doing a radio program in here, and
she goes out there and immediately
then
gets loud.
just gets loud out in the.
Yeah, she does. She just
yeah.
like you're not doing the show.
Yeah, just a little, but that's all right.
I'm sorry, was I too loud?
Just trying to, but that's all right. Just my program.
You know, his show is a lot more mellow than yours.
I said just doing my program. I got in an argument one time with Keon, and Keon we going back and forth, and so I told him something, and he said, so why do you think you could do that? I said, because it's my program, and Keon goes, so.
I completely agree.
So what's the big deal? Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here.
Yep. So 414-444-5250, 414-444-5250. The phone lines are open. That was a very interesting conversation you all were having about marriage, and I don't know. I mean, I was telling someone that I'm really redefining or what it is to to not redefine it, but what family is. And I think that a lot of times we have these discussions about family, and I know the whole issue with J.D. Vance and saying that the people who don't have children shouldn't have the same say, or they don't have the same stake in America as other people. And so, like I said, that was offensive on a lot of different levels. But yeah, it is what it is. I had text Debo and Michelle saying that, Ron and I dated 9 years before we got married, and the I didn't want to be listed as the significant other, very special friend down about the repass, where to give the repass instructions or committal.
Oh yeah, and a very special friend.
And a very special friend who, but I've seen instances where people have, they've been boyfriend, girlfriend for a long time,
Yeah.
and never got married. And you all cited something like, I was asking the question, if two 70-year-olds get together, they're talking about getting married now. There's some financial considerations
Absolutely
that might impact. Let's say you have a pension, and if you get married, you lose that pension.
But then you also run the risk of, if they have them, and they don't have to be young kids, they can be older children who will say, no, I don't want my mother marrying him, because now, if she were to go first, he gets everything, and now everything goes to his kids. I mean, people look at all of that.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it may sound harsh, but it's real.
It's real. I mean, people, what was it? You or Michelle said, folks start acting funny when it comes to money.
That was Michelle that said it, but I can say amen.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a situation where, yeah, it makes all the difference in the world. So caller, welcome to the program. Good morning.
That's what's going on, Keith.
Hey man, I can't call it. What's happening?
I was in the city a couple of days ago.
Okay.
I didn't walk past Atkinson. I was talking to Keon while I was picking up paper out there at his park over to Atkinson.
Yeah. They're talking about trying to rename the.
There's been some talk of it. I don't know where it stands right
Who's now. The supervisor? Is that Priscilla? I think that's Priscilla Cox Jones.
Certain.
I think it might be. Yeah. Yeah, man.
I heard you talking about a brother yesterday. I tried to get in.
Okay.
I was trying to come stuff through there, but I got too busy through the city up there.
Okay.
But I see y'all finna get some good weather finally.
Get some what?
Is that what you call it?
Some good
Yeah,
weather.
I mean 90 degrees ain't bad.
Oh yeah, he's in
Arizona. Yeah.
So
120.
120. I was talking to somebody one time. She lived in Texas, and she said, "Ooh, it's 107, but it's gonna be 105 tomorrow." Like that ain't a cool down. That's a 2 degrees difference, and I think anytime you're over 100, it all feels the same way. 105, 113.
Nah. Listen, I got to roll the window down when I was there in the city.
Yeah.
And I ain't rolled the window down in months.
Well, here's what's interesting. We have right now we're dealing with 76% humidity, so that makes that misery heat index just that much higher.
It was cool to me. I took it.
Yeah.
I'm right back in 107 right now.
And then right now they're thinking it's going to be 71 on Labor Day. So
what, on Monday?
yeah. Well, this Wisconsin, man. If you don't like the weather, just wait a day. It's going to change. It's going to change. It's going to change. It's going to change.
And it'll rain, the sun be shining all in the same day.
In the same day. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, kid. That's all.
All right, man. Yeah. And back on the marriage thing, and congratulations, Aziz and Raven. They're married, and I saw Aziz at the resource fair, and boy, oh boy, I'm giving the old married man war stories. You give, you don't have to hang on in there, because it's been beaten down over the years.
Yeah, man.
And so, then I apologized to him a little bit later. I said, Aziz, I'm sorry, man. You just got married.
Right.
And I tell people I'm agnostic when it comes to marriage. If you want to get married, get married. If you don't want to get married, you don't have to get married. And I think what it represents, especially for descendants of enslaved Africans, it was a certain level of respectability that you had.
Ask you this, Keith. For someone who aspires to be a good, God-fearing Christian,
who's that? Oh, you talking about?
Why are you looking out the window?
I'm looking out the window.
Not yourself, but I'm just saying in general, someone who maybe wants to live right or according to the word or what have you, but yet you seek companionship. How do you not get married and still? Because see, then you run the risk of being at the altar every Sunday or so, repenting.
Okay, well, a couple of things. My first religion class in high school, Father Dominiac asked the question, why do people get married? I said, for love. He said, that is incorrect. I moved to the other side of the room. He said, again, it was wrong over there. It's wrong over here. The Catholic Church believes that you get married for children. And that's what marriage really is about. Two things, prodigy, your offsprings, and property. You got to go back. People remember terms like dowry.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the woman would get married, she would come with a certain dowry. That could be land, that could be livestock. It was very transactional. And this idea.
So in essence, it was what she brought to the table.
What she brought to the table, and you're bringing families together. But then primary support for the children. I believe this is why I believe Jesus was so adamantly against divorce, because when you look at the position of women during the time of Jesus, they had no power. We look at it through a 21st century lens as a woman. Well, no, what women enjoy, especially here in America, they did not enjoy during the time of Jesus. So when he's talking about that, what would happen? A woman can't go out and get a job. She can't go out and get a degree. Well, most people have a degree. She couldn't do that. She couldn't own property, right? She couldn't really even inherit property. So what happens with the kids when the guy will get a divorce? They'd be out suffering. And what would that force that woman into? Prostitution. So it is about that. What happens is, though, now we have a whole industry that's built on marriage. And so then there's the marriage myths out there, right? And like people go like, well, why do you get married? The first reason most people gonna say is because of love. Okay. All right. Okay. But you're gonna find out very quickly just how much love you really have, because you're dealing with another human being now. You're sharing a space. And if you're married, now you have legal and financial obligations, right? If I'm kicking it with somebody, we just, as they used to say in the old days, I don't hear preachers preaching about this anymore, shacking up. Oh, remember preachers get up and they start, oh, y'all out there shack it up. And you just say, ooh. Here's the other thing I want to add to this. After lying, the second most committed sin, probably by folks, is sex outside of marriage.
And that goes back to my question.
I think once you didn't get hit by lightning, I think because this is so violated, people, well, it was wrong. I think the issue with sex outside of marriage and sex in general is responsibility. Because if you are a woman and you are a man, especially a woman in childbearing ages, there is the real possibility that you can get pregnant. All right. So if you're not doing contraceptives, if you're not doing birth control, even if you are, sometimes you still can get pregnant. So that's always a byproduct of people having sex. I know I had this whole argument about whether or not sex was recreational. Okay. Well, if it's a chore for you, I understand it.
Because Meech will be calling.
Somebody else too. They was wearing me out. But it really is two things:
George.
Recreate life.
It was George too, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't George. Recreate life, and it is enjoyable. But with anything we do, anything we do, there should be a level of responsibility. You know, I mean, part of this, and look, my life experience, all my adult life, I have worked with families, either doing public assistance, either working with kids, now working with fathers. And one of the things you try to get people to understand is babies are no accident. There are no accidental babies.
Wait a minute.
No, ain't no accidental babies. If you have sex, unprotected sex, and you know that by having unprotected sex, there's a possibility of a baby, that is not an accident. You made a choice. And so with choices come consequences.
You didn't choose to have a baby. You just chose
you
to
go
in
you
there
did.
Unimpeded.
Yeah, well, it's impeded because you go have a baby. And now the society is saying that who's going to take care of that baby? And so when people kind of, like you hear women say, I was using contraceptives and I still got pregnant. I was on the pill. And then you ask, were you taking an antibiotic? Were you taking something else? Because now there are instances where it will fail. But when you look at the effectiveness of contraceptives, it is very effective. And again, the most effective form of birth control is abstinence.
Well, yeah, that's
which is also the most difficult.
Right.
So we just need to take responsibility. And I know the church has done an incredible job. Church has done an incredible job in terms of really messing us up when it comes to sex. Because it's all the level of ignorance. If we just kind of get back to, and I'll get something about all the emotions, take that out. If we just look at biologically why we have sex, that sex drive is there, so we recreate, but we have consciousness. So as human beings, we have a different level of consciousness. But even if you look at eagles, they create babies, both male and female eagles take care of the baby, right? So this idea, and then we had a certain level of, I don't want to be too critical because like I said, you need security to get me out of here. But it got to the point where it was perfectly acceptable for people to be irresponsible when it came to having kids. Look, dude, look, sister, y'all might not like each other anymore. That dynamic of relationship has to change because you have a child that you both created. And so you have to figure out what's the best way. So fine, we ain't gonna live happily together ever after. Okay, but we still got a child here. We still have a child here. And so I tell both her and him, I could care less about you because now you created a child and the child becomes the focus. You know, I always been dudes get mad at me. Oh man, I got to pay this child support, and they all fall on me. I'm in the child support. Well, in most instances, either she had to figure out how to take care of that child if she is doing primary care, or the state provided care for that child. Somebody took care of that kid. Dropping off sneakers ain't taking care of your kids. That's dropping off a gift. We're talking about heat, shelter, clothing, and we ain't even got to the whole emotional, spiritual thing you need to do to develop that child. Now, a lot of it, I understand. Sometimes we just the victims of our environment. I never saw anybody take care like a man being involved with that. So, no, that's wrong. If you created it, you are responsible for it. Period. And that's hard for some folks. You know, we vilify her for getting pregnant. We vilify him for getting her pregnant. She caught a baby. She didn't catch a baby like she caught a cold. No, I mean, that was purposeful. And so that if the byproduct of what it is, it's usually a child. All right. Won't you come? We done that little harangue. You listen to Community Voice? Are we going to call? Okay. Call welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mr. Parris. Thank you for taking my call. Assalamu alaikum to you brothers, Mr. Debo. Yes, sir. Mr. Parris, we were talking about marriage and what necessitates it. I think there's another aspect of it. In Islam, we are taught that marriage is half of your faith. But we are also taught that depending upon what your station is in life, is a contributing or determining factor as to why you should take up on a wife or not. We live in a free-for-all society, and that's the way that people look at everything. It's a free-for-all until the consequences of that free-for-all come into effect. With marriage, in the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, part of marriage, which is one of the most important aspects of marriage, is the building of nationhood. Because when you are in a family, you understand different aspects of the roles that individuals play. You see a form of government if you have been a part of a family. If you've been born into a family, you see how things are delegated, and you see how this person or that person either takes up on a responsibility with their own initiative as opposed to being forced. So with that, when we look at marriage, what we do not take into consideration is at the core of it, other than procreation, it is the symbol and the substance of what nationhood actually looks like. Because when you have a family, if you understand it, you look at the family, and I'm a part of a family, and I play different roles in this family. As to I have to be that guy to go do this, that, or the third, or this person goes to do that. You have to do this. You have to do that. You've been charged with this responsibility. So in order for this to get taken care of, you have to meet these expectations. So if we minimize or diminish the aspect of nationhood when it comes to marriage, then we are cheapening marriage as this society cheapens marriage. And this society is one of the most polygamous society on the planet.
So let me ask you a question, Christopher. Have you ever been married?
No, I'm not married. Okay. I mean, as my brother minister, I'm not married, but I have a son.
No. So what I'm saying is that when we have either society or religion say that what the benefits of marriage is to that society or to religion.
Stability.
Right, but hold on, wait a minute. But there's the other part of this, and this is where religion and society then struggles, because each marriage is unique in its own way, the human dynamics that are operating in that relationship. And then we have to look at where in the past religion talked about it from a patriarchal perspective, where it is the man who leads the relationship. Modernity is pushing up on that, saying that no, women can be equal partners. And so
can I say this?
And so then the dynamic of that relationship changes, where the man doesn't necessarily have the same level of power he might have enjoyed during the time of Jesus.
And that is fine. But again, we live here in America. We are manufactured people. We think, act, and do the things of those people who brought us here. We are replicants of the slave master's children. So, and as the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said, that there's three things that the cracker wouldn't teach you: the science of business, the science of mating, and the science of war.
Appreciate you. All right, you listen to Community Voice. We're going to take a break, and at the bottom of the hour, we will be inside Be Healthy, Be You. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Keith Parris, the host of Community. All right, welcome back to Community Voice, and we're inside Be Healthy, Be You. Normally we would have Miss Julia Means and Miss Brenda Buchanan, but we have some different folks from the good folks there at Wisconsin, Essential Wisconsin, and so I'm going to have them introduce themselves, coming to my left, and then working your way back to me. So.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Sabrina Ali. I am one of the physicians at the Ascension Family Health Center, and I am also their new community medicine director as well. And I'm glad to be back. I was here last year.
Okay, well, welcome back.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. John Carter. I am a third-year family medicine resident at the Ascension Family Health Center. So last year of residency.
I'm the opposite. My name is Dr. Zoya Morani. I am a first-year family medicine resident doctor. I just moved here from Toronto, Canada, so I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, the Great North.
Yeah.
Now, you originally Canadian, or
Yes.
where were you? Toronto's your.
Yes. Well, the Greater Toronto area is what they call it. So, like, I'm on the suburb side of it.
Is Drake from Toronto?
Yes.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's like his thing, isn't it?
Huh?
Six side.
Yeah.
What did you call it?
Six side.
Six side.
Six side, you know.
Yeah, we saw the when Toronto went on that championship run. I think you guys did what was the Great North outside. So not to be outdone here in Milwaukee, we did the Deer District. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, so the Great North. So welcome. Dr. Carter, where are you from?
I'm actually from this general area originally. I
Okay.
went to Nicolet High School
Okay.
in Glendale there,
The other
and
nights.
then went to University of Minnesota for my undergrad education, and then moved down to Florida for 10 years prior to coming back up here for residency. So kind of local, kind of a Florida local. Not sure where I belong yet.
You belong
Dr.
at
Ali?
I'm actually born and raised in New York City. So I'm a New York City girl by heart, but I've been in Milwaukee and really been enjoying my time here, which is why I decided to stick around some more.
Yeah, they always joke if you drink the water. If you drink the water, you will. Well, Milwaukee is not a bad city.
No, it surprised me. It
Yeah.
has a lot more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Really growing on me too. I've only been here like 3 months. So,
Okay.
Um,
Oh, you came the best time though.
yeah.
You came in the summer,
But our winters are similar, so I'm kind of used to it.
where you'd have people that, I'm gonna move to Milwaukee. Well, visit in December. If you still like it in December, then you'll move back. But if you get here, you'll get spoiled. I mean, like the summer festivals, we are the city of festivals. I mean, it's just one of those incredible things in terms of the city. So today we're going to talk about mental health. There's an event that you all are doing on September the 7th, I think, is it?
The 7th, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I want to talk about mental health. Now, this morning I pulled up, did a little research. I just kind of so we can be conversant, right? And based on where you are, you're located over on Villard, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so that's the hard, or a African American community, right? And then other groups there. I know Hmong. We have other groups of folks there.
Mhm.
This morning I pulled something up that really surprised when we talk about mental health, and we talk about it a lot on this program. But one of the things that I was able to pull up, this is according now to the National Institute of Health, and what blew my mind is it says that Black Americans have lower rates of depression and anxiety than whites, despite greater exposure to stressors known to negatively impact mental health, characterized as the Black-white mental health paradox. You do that in conjunction to when you look at people who are descendants of enslaved Africans. Right now, I think the group that suffers the most from mental health in this country are indigenous people. But then, but it was amazing. But then we have all the other disparities when it comes to health outcomes for descendants of enslaved Africans. So we talk about that whole mental health piece. That was kind of fascinating to me, that in effect you had that paradox. You all want to speak to that, or?
Yeah, I think that is quite an interesting topic to begin with. I will say that I think, generally speaking, I do believe that it's underreported across
I was just
every
gonna say
group
that.
of people. But even in an underreported atmosphere, it sounds like even in that setting, that African American population, you said, is a little bit lower. You said, what did you say, 5% there?
No,
Sound?
let's do the difference here. It is lower because they were talking about the number of folks who even tried to. Okay, here we go. And again, they're using kind of broad numbers here, but it says here that in the USA consistently finds, there's a survey, nationally represented surveys conducted in the USA consistently finds that Black Americans are significantly less likely to meet the criteria for depression or anxiety disorders than white people. Whereas racial differences in psychological distress are less clear, in review of studies, Barnes and Bates found that Black people reported higher levels of stress than whites, 42 of the 45, although most differences were not significant. So I don't know if that is, and then maybe getting to the point that you make in terms of being underreported,
Yeah.
it may or may not be diagnosed.
Yeah.
Is that a
Yeah.
possibility?
And I think especially in underserved communities where these things are not spoken often enough, and then there's that whole mental health stigma. It's across the country, but especially in underserved communities, which is why I sing it from the rooftops, especially with my patient population, or just actually it's consistent in my life personally, whether across the board. But with in underserved communities, it's not spoke about within families and things like that. There's a whole mentality of like kind of like be tough and just suck it up and you'll be fine and all those types of things. And I think that
But wouldn't that be America in general, though, right?
yeah,
You would think so.
I don't
Yeah.
think that people, it seems that people are less likely to seek out assistance for mental health challenges than they are for regular, sorry for using that word, for medical.
Yeah.
We're talking about physiological kind of,
Mhm.
but those things in terms of the body. So, go on.
Sorry. Oh, you knew I was gonna talk. I was
Yeah,
like,
go on.
so this goes into healthcare disparities that we see here. Like Dr. Ali mentioned, the underserved populations, maybe they are underreported, right? I don't know how significant this data is. There are a lot of patients that do have mental health issues from the African American community, but there are so many health disparities and other confounding variables that kind of deter them from getting help, right? They can't afford the medication, they can't afford therapy, right? So they kind of just cope by brushing it under the rug, and nobody's really talking to them. And we see the same pattern in other, areas of medicine where pain is underreported for African American patients. Birth complications, obstetric complications, we see more of that in African American populations because people are not really, there's a lot of biases and all of these things. And obviously, a organization like Ascension, we work on treating all of the patients from a holistic aspect of it and try to take away our biases in that aspect. But I don't know if that statistic is really true in that sense.
I want to just add in here. That's a great question. I don't think we have a good
Yeah.
answer for you.
No, but
It's
you
a
know
long
what?
conversation.
You don't have to have a good answer.
Yeah.
I think we work through it. But I think because sometimes it's easy for us to, I give you a great example. We get so pejorative. So you take 53206, this zip code. It's the worst zip code. And so then people just run with it.
Mhm.
Okay. And then what you have what happens is we have a tendency to, I'm not saying make the problem bigger, but how we identify it as a problem then will be how we then will approach it
Mhm.
in terms of what the
Mhm.
solution will be.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So how we talk about a thing a
Yeah.
lot of times.
Yeah.
And so, and that's that kind of, and again, they call it a paradox.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also wonder, as we're chatting, I'm thinking that I wonder if, it's people are aware of the fact that underserved communities in general have a lot more challenges, right? So with those challenges and the day-to-day things and the fight or flight mentality, do they have the time, the effort, the energy to sit there and think about all the minutia mental health and how it is affecting their day-to-day living? That's what I wonder. And that's why I wonder if that's what the paradox is about. If in these areas they're not getting the support that they need, And so they're in this fight or flight motion,
Right.
surviving and thriving and doing their thing, but they just don't have the luxury of sitting down and focusing on
Yeah.
the mental health aspects of things and how
Yeah.
it affects
Are
them.
they? Yeah. Are they recognizing? Sorry, Kayo. Are
No.
they recognizing their symptoms? Or is it something they think is normal?
I think
That's
also
the
that sometimes because of everything else that is going on, and especially with like appointments when they're seeing a physician, that sometimes the mental health things kind of get kicked to the bottom of the list, whether that's due to the patients or even sometimes the providers too, where, that the more medical related conditions tend to take priority and get more attention, and maybe we're not putting enough focus on the mental health
Yeah.
aspects of it.
So that's a great. I started off with that. It was provocative.
Mhm.
So define mental health. I talked about two things that could impact mental health: depression and anxiety. But when we talk about mental health, what would be this broad definition of mental health?
I guess I can take this one. So mental health, generally speaking, I like to say is a combination of three things: your emotional, your psychological, and your physical well-being. So it's everything. It encompasses all the things, and encompassing all those three different things and how it affects your day-to-day living in your life across all parts of your life, whether it's personal or professional. That's how I feel. That's my best definition.
Right. If I can add to that, people fail to see that mental health is also like physical health, right? And that's why, as Dr. Carter said, it is.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I haven't worked with him that much yet. But as you mentioned, people tend to push it to the bottom of the list and they deal with quote unquote medical issues first, but mental health is part of a medical issue that needs to be addressed. So mental health in, a nutshell is something that controls the rest of your body too, your day-to-day lives, just as Dr. Ali mentioned, right? It's your emotional, psychological well-being, and it affects your physical well-being as well.
You mentioned Dr. Ali, the fight or flight. How much does one environment impact their mental health?
That's an excellent question. It's like a question tale as old as time, right? Is it nurture versus nature, that kind of thing? I think it affects it significantly. I think children, especially, I like to use children as an example. Not a lot of children, at least of my generation, were taught how to deal with their emotional health as a child. You just acted out whatever happened, and then you're just like, oh, go to your room, or you're scolded and things like that. But was I ever taught necessarily how to deal with those emotions in a healthiest way? I don't know. But as time has gone by, I've learned how to deal with those things, right? And I think most of us do that, but a lot of us don't. And so, if you don't give yourself that grace and try actively to learn those different techniques to help you with your mental health, then you're not going to be able to grow. And that's where it goes back to like the community part of it, right? So if you have people in your surrounding you who are supportive and teaching you these things and making it known that it's okay to feel your feelings, it's okay to feel overwhelmed, and it's all right. And this is how we can navigate those feelings. And I think that makes a significant difference. So I would say environment matters.
Yeah, it's a huge contribution to your mental health. I mean, there's something called generational trauma, and we've all kind of heard of that, or parents went through something tough, and the way they act and behave and the family dynamic kind of just builds up or breaks somebody's mental health as they grow up. You can look as far back as maybe your grandparents or great grandparents. What did they go through? And it's kind of like the cyclical generational trauma that's impacted by your environment, right? The environment you live in, or the environment you even work in, where you live, your community. Is it a safe community for you? Are you always worried about your safety and well-being? As a child, Are you, there's people around the world, unfortunately, right now. They're growing up in like war-torn areas and all these things. They're environmental factors that will have a really long-lasting impact on somebody's mental health.
Is there a normal mental, if there is there this, or do we all from time to time have challenges to our mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always a spectrum as to what's normal, right? But everyone has challenges that are going to test that, and that people are going to have to deal with. So, I mean, I don't think there's one you can say that this is a normal person, or that this person has normal mental health. I think that's it's all kind of in the eye of the beholder to an extent.
I think it also comes down to the tools that you have to deal with and cope with certain stressors in your life. So everybody does, have issues with their mental health in some aspect of their life, but it's about how you deal with it, right? How early do you recognize these symptoms? And this is why I always try to tell everyone that it's important to have a therapist, even if you think that you don't need it. People have this negative notion of a therapist. They think that a therapist is somebody who can only help someone who is, in a severe case of mental health issue. But the reality is, it's like having a primary care physician who is kind of checking up on you, preventative care. They kind of screen you ahead of time. So therapists can also screen you throughout your life and talk to you about the stressors that you're going through, and talk to you about the tools you can use. Okay, if you have a situation where you start getting anxious and your chest starts to tighten up, this is what you can do. And there's breathing techniques for that. And so, these are tools and skills that you need to develop as an individual, because
it's an excellent point. And also going to it, I love that you asked that question about normal, because that word is thrown around in society so much. Like, oh, he's not normal. They're not normal. Like, what do you mean? Anybody who says that they at some point are not struggling with their mental health, I think they need to think about it a little bit more. Everybody struggles, and I think it's just a matter of having these conversations. And actually, I want to change the language. Let's normalize it. Let's normalize it. Let's talk about it. Let's have the conversations. It's okay. It's okay to have this. And life is hard. Life is
for everybody.
Hard. Everybody.
But it says something, though, when we talk about our mental health. You're talking about people in war-torn countries, right? There's a word they're using in fatherhood work now called resilience. But the human mind is an organism, and it is adapting, and it adapts to its environment, right? We it's one of those, because we're trying to survive. That's the one thing that all organisms have in this ecosystem is they're all trying to survive. And there are different levels of what that looks like, but it's still that basic. So this idea, when we hear about trauma in terms of children, it has a lot to do, but you talked about kids who are in a war-torn situation where they're seeing violence and destruction every day, and you kind of watch them, and they're out there playing in the midst of the rubble. Right? I mean, because it's how the brain can process it.
Well, there's a lot of factors that play into how an individual will and can respond to various stressors. And when we look at mental health conditions in general, you have to look at there's the biological factors like genetics and physiology, brain chemistry, things like that. But then you also have to look at the specific life experiences, which can be things like childhood trauma or abuse, things like that. But then one of the other things that we see often is that having a first degree family member that has a mental health condition does increase the risk that you can have a mental health condition. So there is a family aspect of it too, whether or not that's related to genetics or physiology or related to common environmental factors, we haven't quite parsed that out, but it's interesting that there's that kind of dynamic.
Well, the lived experience, and I know that part of lived experience is that we have veterans who were in war zones, right? And I think we better understand it now. I think the term they used that started in World War I was shell shocked, right? And the guys would almost become catatonic, right? Because they're just so overwhelmed
Yeah.
by this. And even to the point where military physicians, because they're figuring, are you just faking this so you don't have to fight, would dismiss it. Now I think we do is post-traumatic stress, right? And we begin to understand now that beyond, there are guys who come back with no physical wounds,
Yeah.
but psychologically,
A lot.
they're I mean, right, because what they witnessed.
Yeah.
And so it's this, and you said something like life is hard,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
it's good,
Yeah.
but it's hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
It is. It's hard. You know, you go through your challenges every single day. Every single person has different stories to tell. Everybody's story is important, and I think that if we don't acknowledge that life is hard and that we need help, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And like I said, again, having that conversation, and Zoe said it earlier. Dr. Marani, she said earlier that about therapists. Listen, it's just my 2 cents, but I agree, and I think that everybody should be in therapy. I do. I think we'd have less suicide, we'd have less homicide, we'd have less divorce, we'd just be like happier people. Maybe this genetic. I do think there is a genetic connection for sure. However, maybe uncle, dad has depression, now daughter has depression, but did uncle, dad learn how to manage that depression? Did we generationally also pass down tools in their toolbox to teach them how to deal with that? That is my wonder.
Yep. And a lot of substance abuse comes into play with that
we're
too.
going to
Yeah.
talk about coping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, resilience is also a coping mechanism. I mean, there's a
Fight or
quote.
flight.
Yeah, there's a quote I heard. And this is pertaining to obviously the stuff happening around the world. And somebody said the children in Palestine don't even have PTSD yet because they didn't get the time to even process what they're
Right.
going through.
Right.
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 So that's resilience, is that coping strategy. And then substance abuse that you see in the community. People go towards alcoholism, drugs, because it helps them cope in that time.
So let's do this. We're going to take a break.
Yeah,
Pick it up.
sure.
You're inside Be Healthy, Be You. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Back to Community Voice, and we're inside Be Healthy, Be You, and we have a good folks here from it's All Saints, right?
It's
Ascension
complicated.
Family Ascension Family Health Center.
Yes.
They're
Change
on-
the name.
Change the name.
Yes.
And we were talking about the importance of mental health and mental wellness. We talked about it. I always use the example of, for me, in terms of these discussions, Pandora's box/jar, where all the things come out. We get all the negative out, and we close the jar for the most important thing gets out, which is hope, right? And in the South, they were descendants of enslaved Africans who, particularly from Mississippi, who would use the word hope as for help. The Lord hoped me, but they were saying the Lord helped me. And so this idea of that there is hope, even though we all are probably challenged or our mental health is challenged from time to time, there's still hope.
Yeah.
You're recommending therapy.
Yes.
You're recommending therapy.
Yes. You should never lose hope. You should be your biggest fan, your greatest advocate, advocate for your own mental health, and reach out for the resources in the community. Get a therapist on your side. We have a lot of therapists in our clinic, and it's not that you need to be going through something traumatic to have a therapist on your side. It's like having a family medicine doctor on your side, making sure that they're providing you with the tools to prevent severe conditions from getting even worse.
Yeah, and not only therapists. I know we said therapists a lot so far, but it's not only therapy. There's many different techniques, and whether there's therapy, there's medication, but there's also other things. There's yoga, there's meditation, there is art therapy, and we were the break. We're talking a little bit of equine therapy, horse therapy, and there's just a variety of different things that you can do in your day-to-day life that can help you. Positive affirmations, stress balls, taking a walk, listening to music, talking to a friend, sleep,
Exercise.
Spirituality.
yeah.
Those are big ones.
Nutrition, which, by the way, we're going to be addressing all of these things at our Wellness Wonderland this year, teaching folks how to do all of these things. We have wonderful volunteers from all over, but I know we'll talk about that later. Sorry.
Just had to plug it, right?
Oh, I wish
Well,
you
I get excited.
You need to get excited about this, Dr. Ali.
I wanted to throw in spirituality. I mean, that's a big thing that our organization stands for, a big thing that I personally believe in. And you don't have to be religious to be spiritual. You just, and hope comes into play with that. Being in touch with yourself, your core, your identity, your moral compass, things you believe in, a higher power or something of that sort. And we have these spirituality services in our hospitals, especially like Ascension specifically. We have spirituality services, so it helps people cope with their diseases and mental health issues that come with diseases and all of that stuff. So spirituality is a big thing.
We have a caller. Caller, welcome to the program.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well.
I have a question.
Can you do me a favor? Turn your radio down. We're getting feedback, and I know you have us on delay. So
Oh,
turn your radio down.
yeah. Turn the radio down.
We have spirituality services, so it helps people cope with their diseases and mental health issues.
Is turning it down? Or?
Yeah, yeah.
Spirituality is a big thing.
Okay.
All right, there you go. Your question?
My question is I guess my comments is they're talking about mental health, and I think the problem with the society is that in mental health, there's a stigma attached to it. And I think that's why a lot of people don't seek help.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we break that stigma?
I think education.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that to us. Yeah, education for sure, and conversation.
Yes.
Conversation. I said it, and I'll say it again. I think that we have to talk to each other. We have to allow ourselves to be open enough to say, hey, I'm struggling. Because when you are brave enough to do that and you have courage enough to do that, then other people will start to talk about it too.
Mhm.
And normalize the conversation, whether that be with a therapist, which I'll say again, or family members, with friends, but being able to normalize those conversations so there isn't that stigma attached to it is important.
There's a lot of cultural stigma, that I've experienced even myself, that, people don't believe that mental health issues are real, or they think, quote unquote, it's all in your head, right? So it's important to reach outside your cultural circle, reach out to the resources in the community, and talk to somebody who will listen to you and reaffirm your problems and things like that. Because we try to talk to, maybe family and friends, and they're not necessarily always the best people to help us with the coping tools. Especially when it comes to mental health. And this is where family physicians come into play. We're trained on, a variety of different things, different body organs and this and that, but we're also trained in recognizing mental health issues and providing our patients with a lot of resources. And going back to Dr. Ali's point, we're having this wellness wonderland, and one of the reasons we're having it is to provide the community with these resources, different types of coping strategies and all of that stuff. We can educate you about things. You can bring your family members that don't believe in mental health to the Wellness Wonderland. We'd be happy to speak to them about it, right? So I think education holds a big part in this conversation.
I can think also the Affordable Care Act. What the Affordable Care Act did was put mental health up with physical health.
Mhm.
Because it used to be you only had a limited number of visits you had, whether you were cured or healed or at a better place. If you only had 14 visits that your health plan paid for, that was it.
Yeah.
Now with this, they treat us the same. If I got in a car accident, what do we need to do to get you back to level,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think the conversation is starting to happen more and more. I think it's slowly starting to turn, and we're getting more and more support from governmental bodies to be able to do these things. And I think that, but we need to keep shouting it out from the rooftops and being like, yeah, this is important. This is a priority. The same way any other chronic condition is, your mental health condition is equally as important.
Right.
Anything else, caller?
No, that was very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Ali sounds wonderful. Thank you very, very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Well,
You too.
you mentioned spirituality,
Mhm.
and you also separated the difference between spirituality and religion.
Mhm.
But there is, because I've spent an enormous amount of time doing this, I believe that religion has its own lane.
Yes. Yeah.
But for some people, they believe religion is all encompassing. Okay. And what I mean by that is how it's applied to their life.
Mhm.
There's certain people believe that there's certain things that just can be explained through religion
Mhm.
or God. And that's not the case. We're talking now something that's based on, as the ancient philosophers say, matter, science, knowledge, that does not negate religion. And there's a lot of people, when you talk about going getting therapy, talk about doing yoga, doing meditation, they feel like that's a challenge to their religion, right? And so them getting the help they need, they feel like they would be violating their religion. Even in the Christian Bible, there is when Jesus comes upon a man who is dealing with bipolar conditions, then they just called it demons, right? And now you put it on this thing of good and evil. And so now people don't want to be in a situation where they're not being good, right?
Okay.
Is that making sense in terms of why that might be a barrier for some folks?
I think that's where some of the stigma comes from, too.
Right.
You know?
Mhm.
That I'm so going.
Yeah, I can't speak for Christianity because I'm not that well versed as opposed to being well versed in Islam. But when it comes to mental health and Islam, it's something that is part of the religion. And I say that because meditation is something we do every single
The
day.
prayer, right?
Yes, 5 times a
5
day.
times a day.
And we're told that human beings are created anxious. We're anxious beings naturally, right? So what are we doing to ground ourselves? And and I'm sure Christianity also encourages mental health well-being. And I know that there is.
It depends. I wish I could say that as, and I would also say, just again, religion is also environmental. So depending on the environment you're practicing that religion in will have impact then on things. If you're in a situation where you have, let's say, they use the term theocracy, where it is certain things that happen. It is a dynamic conflict. I speak from my experience as a descendant of an enslaved African, understanding that there were things. We had a situation where a young man was dealing with, he had a lot of mental health challenges, and his family is part of a very fundamentalist sect in Christianity. And they were taught you can pray demons out, right? So they attacked it as a demon, not as a mental health issue, which would require science. Seriously, that's what I'm saying in terms of that. And so what happened was they're praying him out. So they press him down and they try to get him from moving. And in the interim, they end up killing him. That level, and I'll use a word, there's a certain level of ignorance that's around it. So for some, in some communities, this is why they won't go and get help.
Yeah.
Because we've been taught, again, that God can do anything.
Yeah.
And so then there's this whole thing where, but no, you need to go and see a therapist, man. You need to be on medicine. You're dealing with something that's neurological.
Yeah.
And though that miracle may happen, here's the miracle: get the help.
It's an important point, and I think that it's hard to have those conversations with people who are, feel that it questions their core belief system as a human and what they were raised and what they learned. But I think that if we can see, or at least educate folks and make them understand that these things aren't going to go against your religion. And in all cultures, in all religions across the board, I'm sure that whatever creator they believe in, or if they don't believe in a creator, whatever it is, whoever they believe in across, I think that they can at least hopefully take comfort in saying, you know what, if my God wants the best for me, then God also could have created all these other wonderful things for me to utilize. So looking at it a little bit differently, and not that, oh, I'm just going to sit here and it's going to get better because God is going to do some divine intervention. Maybe they look at it that divine intervention is coming through different things.
And I think it gets to, again, a unique experience, what gets back to that first point I was making about how when you look at these whole mental health challenges, we use the term coping. Well, for enslaved people and then descendants of enslaved people, religion was one of those coping mechanisms that we had, right? It was, there's a song out, sometimes it just makes you want to holler. Have you ever gotten to the point where you just and I'm sure the pressures of being in medical school and all of that, I'm sure you had a point where you went like, I just need to holler. I just, really,
More
what I
often
mean?
than you think.
Blow it off. And then it gets into, some people they go on benders, do a whole lot of different things.
Yeah.
But that stress based on what we're doing. Yeah. And so to be able to get through. Now, did you say coping is not a strategy? Did I hear you?
No, I don't.
No, what did you say in terms of coping?
What did I say?
Because you
I know,
did.
but they're coping, coping mechanisms
It's a strategy.
is a strategy.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't
then
know.
I
Sorry,
good.
I
No,
don't
you're good. No, no, I just and so I think that part of that is, what DMX said. I'm about to lose my mind up in here, up in here. Because and part of our mental health is directly related to other human beings that we have to figure out how to live within a particular space.
I think so. Just touching back on that point you mentioned about the practices of demons and all that, I think there's a lot of cultural influence as well, and it's not necessarily that it's like general throughout religion. There are a lot of
Nuances.
people that practice Christianity, but also support mental health.
Oh yeah.
But I think a lot of cultural aspects kind of play a big role in not addressing mental health issues, and the same thing goes for Muslims in certain cultural communities. They don't believe in these things like medication. They're like, okay, just pray to God, it'll be fine. But that is not what it's about.
Well, I think, and part of what you're doing when you're doing that wellness wonderland is raising people's level of understanding.
Yeah.
It is a level of ignorance. I just don't know. And sometimes the fear of knowing, right? Because what my mom used to say is that once you know better, you're supposed to do better. And there's something that comes along. And here's the other thing, that what we're able to do is we can manage our issues. We can manage them. We won't necessarily heal them, but we've learned how to manage them in such a way. And then I said to folks, though, but your issues will kick in at the most inopportune time. Because all you did was manage them. We didn't really begin to mitigate them, which is very different. I just put it back here. And then there's a trigger. We just lost one of our coworkers. And his death triggered a lot of people. Triggered in terms of some other things that they realized I didn't mourn this person, or it reminded me of that. So those things are also challenges to our mental health.
And sorry, I didn't mean to skip over your coping question as well.
Okay, I'll go back to it.
Sorry, I'll give you guys a chance to talk too. I'm just so passionate about this.
Well, I also just wanted to say I'm sorry for your loss, your coworker.
You met Keon, right?
Last year.
Yeah, last year.
I didn't know he passed away.
Yeah.
I'm
and
sorry.
it did. I mean, it triggered people who, they just thought about that. And I think that's part of it. We live in this traumatic. I love the quote, though, you talked about when you talked about the Palestinian children in Gaza.
Yeah.
That they're not dealing with post-traumatic traumatic stress disorder because they haven't had time.
Yeah.
And you hear that when people die, I haven't had time to grieve.
Yeah. And people do suppress it too, even going with you were saying with your friend here, and other folks realizing that they didn't grieve through other passings and other people that they loved, and it's more common than you think, and that does circle back to like the coping mechanisms, because there are healthy coping mechanisms and then there are unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
So having those healthy ones are so important for grief, for just everyday life, for everything.
Yeah.
And,
referring back to DMX. Gonna lose my mind up
What
in
you know
here.
about that?
I'm
looking at you, just she is so mellow, but it's just like.
I used to DJ.
Did you? Look at you. Okay.
But yeah, coping. I wanted to touch on cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
Okay.
And when it comes to like the people you're around, the way you think about things, and it's really important to be at peace within and have a positive mindset. And that CBT is one of the tools that therapists teach you, using the T word again. But there was a book that I read about CBT, and it's like, okay, you see a friend walking down the street and you say, hey, but she doesn't turn around and say hi back, and you start thinking, oh my God, that was so rude. Why didn't she turn around? She's this, she's that. Oh my God, is she mad about something? Did she find out about this? Oh my gosh. And then you start going into a downward spiral and your entire day is ruined. Whereas it could have just been as simple as, okay, she just didn't hear me. That's fine. I'll shoot her a text. You know? So
Yeah.
your mindset, the way you talk to yourself, your inner voice, the way you train it, a lot of us don't realize, but we're our biggest enemies sometimes. You know, we're trying to feed ourselves negative thoughts, and this is one of the tools that are important for everyone to use. So
And you can counter those thoughts with positive affirmations
exactly.
that you can learn about.
I used to tell my
Almost like
buddies,
There we go.
I said, you know, when I get well, I can't be your friend anymore. When I get my mind right, we can't hang out anymore. But you know, I mean, but it was because sometimes we have enablers, right? Or we go and find people who are similarly situated,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a certain comfort in that,
Yeah.
and being able to get around folks who they said like-minded folks, and so sometimes, you know, you have to get to the point where people will say, you know, and I think that's the other piece in terms of mental health. When you say go to friends,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you need to get away.
no, I think it quickly becomes this is me. You come to me and you know, you're speaking to me and you start talking about your problems. I think about 3.5 minutes into that conversation, notice the shift. I then bring it back to me.
Yeah.
That's a therapist doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I do that a lot with my sister, and she hates it.
Yeah,
So I know
That's an
exactly what you're
excellent
talking.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we do.
Excellent point.
You know, you get to, because
Mhm.
instead of just being there, I read this incredible definition of a friend,
Mhm.
and it talked about how, I'm paraphrasing, how a friend, the greatest piece of friendship you can do is presence.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to say anything,
Mhm.
you don't have to do anything, just listen.
Yeah.
And then we bring in our own thing. I know I do it. You know, you get into, I don't know if you all do this in the medical procedure. I mean, in medical profession, when you're in the lounge and talking about, yeah, I had to remove 2 organs today. No, or you talk about
And then
your
you go back
stress,
to yourself.
right? That is back to you. Oh no, I mean, but that's part of why it's so difficult sometimes
Yes.
to talk to folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
And not only that, it's also the fact of like, okay, I'm gonna come to you and I'm gonna start complaining about Bob, but Bob's your friend, so now you got to stay neutral in this conversation.
how do you do that?
How do I do that? Now I feel bad. Can I really talk about Bob?
Yeah.
You know, Bob did whatever. You know, not that you want to talk about anybody, but it's just like if you're getting your frustrations out.
Yes, you do.
Bob.
Yes, you
Unless it's Bob.
This is Bob, especially Bob.
There's a lot of bias.
But that's the thing, that's where the therapy and things like that come into play. And even in a family scenario, you know, like you're feeling this deep hurt from somebody, something in your life. How do you go about talking to these people, your family, friends, about these things without there being an emotional attachment, without an argument ensuing? That's the beauty.
Because I think
of
the
therapist.
interesting thing about that same friend is that friend won't judge you.
Yes.
And the difficulty we have taking problems to our family members is fear of judgment.
Yeah.
I work with kids and around issues, you know, sex education and the whole piece.
Oh wow.
And what we've discovered was the reason why kids don't go to their parents is fear of judgment.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's easier to go to a friend who's not going to judge you, right?
Yeah.
But you know, and maybe your mother won't. But it gets around, especially around issues, you know, that are pretty deep. Those traumatic experiences as a child,
Mm-hmm.
and there's always a real balance in do I talk to my mom about that?
Yeah. And then even taking it a step further and saying if somebody's having suicidal thoughts,
Yes.
they're thinking about killing themselves, hurting themselves, taking their own life, and they are not, you know, they're in this kind of gray zone area type thing and feeling like, oh, if I tell mom or dad, they're just going to worry about me.
Yeah.
Which is hard.
Or they're going to dismiss it.
Or they're going to dismiss it.
You'll get
Right.
through it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You'll be
It
fine.
might
be
even
fine.
make it worse.
Yeah.
It might make it worse. And the friend you're going to, although they love you very much and support you and everything, they might say something wrong. They might not help you in a sense. And when it comes to counselors and psychologists and therapists, the T word again, they're trained to not be biased.
Mhm.
They're trained to, allow you to speak and not say things that may trigger it even further.
Yeah.
So,
And even to add a little bit add on to that too, it's important to also recognize that not every therapist is for everybody, and to realize that the same way you choose a partner in life, you choose a friend in life, therapists and doctors as well,
Yeah.
you need to have a connection with.
Mhm.
And it's okay not to have a connection with everybody.
How, when you talk about that, and it was interesting, I used the term bedside manner. Uh, depending on where you are, when you talk about those biases, how important is that one to be able to identify that and then address it if it's been identified as, because we all come from our environments. I mean, you for me to I give you an example, going from a predominantly an environment of predominantly descendants of enslaved Africans to now a totally different ethnic thing. It was crazy, right? But part of that was just, and this is why segregation is so awful, because what happens is then it allows people to come up with these kind of myths about folks and stereotypes about folks and prejudices about folks. They're not based in fact, right?
It's like an echo chamber.
Yeah, and clearly. And then it reinforces me, and then I find myself in that environment. And those of us who are use this term, I use the term minority, but for marginalized groups, and then you go into, it's like you going in a world in America that is predominantly Christian, but you're Muslim. People say that's no big deal, right? It can be in certain environments, or me being a Protestant going into a Catholic situation. Of course, it's not Northern Ireland, but going into that situation, so all those things, and it impacts our mental health. If you're going in from a marginalized group of people, Dr. King had this obsession when he went to graduate school of this idea of being on time. Because there's this whole pejorative CP time, colored people time, when you just get there when you get there. And he was very mindful to the point it caused him depression. That's what I'm saying. If those things also factor in, you're the first one in your family to go to college. There's an enormous amount of stress that's going to impact your mental health. I mean, it is, or even social acceptance, which is really important. So in high school, I clearly understand, high school kids want to just fit in, but there are kids who don't. How does that impact their mental health? I mean, and unfortunately, depending on the environment you're in, the things that we celebrate in high school, athletics, cute girls, cute guys, all these things. And then you have this whole, now we get into these different silos of different groups. You've always seen the high school movies where they're going and they can identify. And all these kids are sitting up dealing with a certain level of teen trauma, right? And how they address it, so I mean, it's okay.
It's a tough one. I think bias is inherently in everybody. And I think that the only way to navigate that situation is asking questions,
Exposure,
being self-aware, and trying to grow as an individual. I don't like the idea of staying stagnant ever. It actually frightens me a little bit, like you should always want to grow and be better each and every single day, and whether that's on all aspects of your life. So having those questioning, and having those conversations, like what did you think about our conversation, whether that's a friend or for us with our patients. Did I say that okay? I say that to my patients. Did you understand everything that we talked about? Do you feel comfortable the way I explained it? Do you have any questions? And kind of trying to circle it around and fight those biases that way, so I can do better.
Yep. We're trained also in medicine to recognize certain biases, whether that's medical biases or health disparities or stereotypes that might be out there. We actually have a team that came to speak to us about healthcare disparities and biases and all of these things and how we can kind of be neutral, and train ourselves to be neutral. So that's something in the healthcare field that we're actively working on, and obviously it takes time to kind of eradicate that fully because there's every individual is different, but the biases that we have, I mean, we have to kind of check ourselves sometimes as well, right? Am I saying this because this person identifies as something different than me? Am I thinking this way because I know something about the person or their history or things like that? You have to kind of question yourself and check yourself sometimes.
Tell us about the event that you're having on September the 7th.
Dr. Ali?
Okay. I'll start it
You
off
DJ?
here. Yeah, we want her to, but we don't have
I'm
the
doing the
equipment
henna.
for it.
I'm retired. I'm a retired DJ.
Okay, so Wellness Wonderland, everyone, is a mental health fair that we started last year. So this is the second one ever, and it was a huge success. We were very happy with the turnout. We had like more than around 200 folks from the community come out to support this event, and they enjoyed it. So it's a completely free event for everybody who comes out, and the point of it is to teach how to deal with your stressors of life, have conversations like we did today to reduce that mental health stigma, and to have fun, just have a lot of fun. So it's set up in two different ways. Half of the event is set up where there are mental health learning stations, which you must participate in if you want to get coins. And when you get your coins, then you can go on the carnival side, where you can dunk Dr. Carter here in a dunk tank if you would like. But there's also a few other docs who are going to be in the dunk tank. We have carnival games. We also we're giving away free school supplies, backpacks, food. We have lots of desserts, and we have a clown with balloon animals. We also have a...
Oh, you do know there are some people who have clown phobias. You might trigger.
It's interesting you brought that up.
It's not,
This is exposure therapy.
It's not a traditional clown. Don't worry, guys. Don't be scared. It's not a traditional clown.
It's not traditional. It's untraditional.
We'll hide the clown from anybody who doesn't want to see the clown. But I promise it's not a traditional creepy clown. It's
We're
not
coming from mental health, and you triggered everybody all over the place. It was like, what happened? The clown. It was the clown.
Oh my god.
Which is interesting. This is why I am not a therapist, because I don't understand clown phobia. I don't understand it.
We're not shaming any folks.
We're not shaming right now, but
We'll
I
help
just
you
want
get through it. It will destigmatize your clown.
This is our exposure
fears.
therapy, right?
However, it's not a traditional clown, guys. Don't worry. It's mainly just somebody dressed up with balloon animals, and it's not the traditional, scary it kind of clowns or anything of that
That's a
nature.
traditional clown?
No, what is it, Pennywise? Pennywise.
It's not Pennywise. Oh my
He
god.
won't be over
We
near
did
the
this.
sewer.
Oh
Okay,
my
we
God.
got it. All right.
Oh my god.
Well,
Pennywise, that set a whole lot of people back. Thank you, Stephen King. That set a
We
whole.
checked that other conversation a long time ago.
Did it? Yeah.
okay. Well, anyway, we also have Milwaukee Steve, who's coming out, and he's an entertainer and a juggler, and he volunteered his time last year. He's coming out again this year. Lots of fun. He plays the harmonica, does a lot of cool things. So
Therapy
yeah.
animals.
Yep, we have therapy animals. I guess we can start a little bit shouting out some of our supporters here.
Please do.
So I already said Milwaukee Steve. One of the other big ones is Pets Helping People. They specialize in animal assisted therapy, and they're bringing their dogs to the event, and they're going to be teaching folks how doggos can help you with that. And these doggos are used to large events as well, so they're trained, and that's going to be a lot of fun as well. And then we have Tatiana's Tiny Zoo. She is bringing some of her little animals. If you want to see which kind, you have to come on out and see. But she talks a lot about mental health and how that connects to how animals connect to mental health and just being in the environment. And she does a lot of great work as well with the Ronald McDonald House and the Milwaukee Center for Independence. And what else? We have the fire department. The Milwaukee Fire Department's coming through. They're going to be talking about fire safety and giving away little fire helmets. And then we have the fire truck making a guest appearance at some point, so the kiddos can enjoy that.
You're not doing the police ice cream truck?
The police ice cream truck. Wasn't aware of it. Yes,
yeah, you might
they're
wanna-
invited right now. Let's bring
know
the
somebody?
No, really should. They do. They come out. As a matter of fact, the officers love that duty. But yeah, they have ice cream. They started off giving baseball cards back in the day. Now they have an ice cream, so you can contact and see if the ice cream truck is available.
I love that idea. We'll do that for sure. But speaking of the police, we do have the mounted patrol unit with the horses. We're going to have one or two of them come out and check us out and hang out with us for a little bit as well. Yeah, so on going back to the wellness stations though, if you're interested to know what we're going to learn about, you're going to learn about how to do yoga, meditation. We have a positive affirmation station, art therapy. What else we got? The animal therapy, which we talked about.
I'm doing henna.
She's going to be on the carnival side.
Yes.
You're on the carnival side. Yeah, so there's a lot of different stations that we're going to be able to learn about. Stress ball making, bubble breathing, a lot of really, really fun, cool stuff. And I'm going to let John.
Want me to shout out some of our other sponsors
Yeah.
here? So we have the Ascension Family Health Center, which is where this event is going to be held. That's on 2400 West Villard Avenue. It's also where we all work.
Time.
Oh, you want me to do the full? Yeah. Okay. So the event will be on Saturday, September 7th from 12 to 4 p.m. And that will be at the Ascension Family Health Center, which is located on 2400 West Villard Avenue in Milwaukee. Sound good?
Yep.
Great.
So other sponsors that will be making an appearance or have contributed either financially or have donated food. We have the Wisconsin Academy of Family Physicians and Rogers Behavioral Health, both of whom are very active in the community. So we love that they are sponsors with us. We also have the American Pakistani Public Affairs Committee, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We have Apollo Cafe, which is a great Greek restaurant down on Brady Street in downtown Milwaukee. We have North Shore at Home, which is a hospice company centered in southeastern Wisconsin. Their main offices are located right there in Glendale.
Yep. And I have a few shout outs as well. We have, we're very blessed and grateful to have all of these people wanting to help and get involved. So we have Festival Foods. It's a family-owned grocery store. Outpost Natural Foods, they're actually an organic grocery store. So if you have special dietary restrictions and needs, then you can definitely go check them out. We have Mr. Dye's Pies. This is definitely a hidden gem I've heard in Milwaukee. They have very unique pies. They will be bringing their pies into our carnival. And again, all of the things at our carnival and wellness wonderland are free. So please do come check it out. We have Pizza Shuttle. It's a great local pizza eatery. They will be providing us with sandwiches. We have Criollo Latin American cuisine. It's a Puerto Rican cuisine. They'll be providing us with rice and meat. And because, I'm new here from Toronto, and we have like a lot of halal food options there. But here I was trying to explore the different types of cuisines and halal options. So we did get Pita Palace on board. Pita Palace is a Palestinian-owned Mediterranean restaurant. They'll be providing us with food as well. They're 100% halal. They're also providing gluten-free stuff. I love their kebabs and hummus. So, you guys should definitely, I know I'm a foodie. So they're going to be providing delicious halal food for us as well.
And halal just means allowed. And that basically kind of is food that's allowed. in terms-
Permissible,
permissible.
and there's a certain way that it's slaughtered in
Yeah,
order
slaughtered.
for it to be considered halal. But there's difference of opinions in that. It's a whole different conversation.
Similar like kosher, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Very similar. Yeah.
Because I saw that they do halal. I'm trying to think of the Fatty Patty, the burger truck.
Oh yeah.
They're
Oh,
halal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so help me understand this whole thing
Yeah.
about my wife works with, is it the Rohingya?
Rohingya.
Rohingya folks,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so when they're doing events for the
Mhm.
family, they're looking for halal.
Right.
Yeah. So
So you want to know like what it exactly is,
no, just
essentially, or
if you like to share.
I can give you a brief. On
You have such a how would you describe this? Such a mellow dynamism. I mean, it really is. I mean, it comes across, but then you go, like, just got hit. But no, that does. Go on. Explain that.
I don't know how to respond to that, but I'll take it as a compliment. So a halal meat is basically meat that you've made the intention of slaughtering this animal for the purpose of eating, and you slaughter it in the name of God. So you're not just kind of killing something in vain. It has to be well kept. The animal has to be well fed. It has to be treated well. And when you slaughter it, we believe that a sharp knife to the jugular vein in one swift cut is the least painful for the animal, and we allow the blood to drain out. Whereas traditionally slaughtered meat, you're just kind of chopping the heads off of chickens. And I'm sorry for any people that are vegans here, but it kind of increases the stress hormones in the meat.
Okay.
And it actually changes. I've heard the flavor in halal meat and non-halal meat is very apparent. So I'm sure you've tried it, and so it's healthier, and that's our kind of gist of it.
And I think that's why we really in America, in most nations now, because what we find is it is multi-ethnic, and just to discover the riches of other groups other than yourself.
Yeah.
But then it also comes into even then how you practice medicine, right? Because those cultural things are real for people.
Yes.
And I was just thinking, Dr. Ali, when you talked about positive affirmations, I had to go to one of my favorites.
Yay! I love that.
Mr. Stuart,
Let's hear it.
Mr. Stuart Smalley. I'm good enough.
Yeah.
I'm smart enough.
Hey.
And doggone it, people are gonna like me.
Hey.
And I don't know if you ever saw Stuart Smalley on SNL.
I love
Yeah,
it.
I mean, it was just
And
like,
it makes a difference.
right,
They
right.
do.
right.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I don't do a lot of this on Facebook because I'm not profound enough. I see people constantly, their volume of profundity is just so amazing to
Yeah, but
me.
you can say I am profound enough.
I am. Oh yeah, let me put that in. I am profound enough, and doggone it, people gonna like me. But there was this thing. I said, my life got better when I realized that it wasn't as good as I thought it was. My life got better.
Yeah.
And that whole thing about I'm not just quite. My mother, who just turned 90,
Wow.
turned 90 on Saturday.
Amazing.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
great
happy
health.
birthday.
Thank you. And my mother used to always say to us, like, come in, mom. I really had a good day today. And my mother would go, but the day is not over. You can always get better. Now, for some folks, then that turns into a whole psychological thing where they put just undue pressure on themselves. So I tell you the thing that a lot of times failure can dramatically, we go into deep depression when we fail. You know, I mean, it's tough. And if you're people who, I had a classmate, she was valedictorian in her class. She had 1 B in high school, and she got it in gym. And all she talked about was that 1 B. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, 1 B 4 years, 1B, everything is A's, and you're obsessed with that 1B.
I have a story.
Striving
you.
for perfection. That's what
So-
it is.
When I was in grade 4, there was this one kid. He would always come up to me and show me his report cards, like rub it in my face. Look, I got an A in math. I got better than you. I got this better than you. I don't know why he was like that, but one day I got an A+ in math and I did better than him. So I went up to him and I rubbed it in his face, and he started crying. And he started freaking out, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I guess like his parents were gonna be like really mad at him or something. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, poor guy. This like really means a lot to him. And here I am with like happy with my B's and C. I was studious, I mean, but that's what,
Just squeaked by.
it's just,
Oh my
Well-
Hey, you got school cred. Hey, I was studious too. But you know, and then when you think about it,
It goes to the chronicity of the mental health things that you were talking
right?
about.
What
That's what it
descendants
is.
of immigrant children,
Yeah.
Mhm.
they're under an enormous amount of pressure, especially if their parents came here for education.
Yeah.
You know, and back to that word, normal. You're not going to live like what would be a typical normal American
Mhm.
life,
Yeah.
because the expectations are and they should be, because then in most instances it's like Harold and Kumar, right?
Yeah.
You know, where Kumar's dad expects him to be a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and does he eventually? He doesn't eventually become a doctor, does
I don't
he?
think so.
No.
I
I
don't
think I
think
watched the whole
that's-
series, so I don't.
Kumar was a bad influence on him. I think he just
Wait,
brought out the,
well-
You didn't like Kumar?
it was kind of annoying. I'm just kidding. It was a very funny movie.
Well, with the ups and downs of life, I do think it's important to recognize that. Like what you said, it is important to be like your mother says, the day's not over yet.
Day's
It's
not over.
true. The day is not over yet. I mean, but it's important to recognize that it's okay. It's okay to have those fluctuations and realize that these things are chronic diseases and chronic conditions, and just to work through it and learn how to focus on utilizing the tools in your toolbox to kind of navigate the situations, as tough as they may be.
I was actually, I went to middle school about maybe 4 blocks from here, 5 blocks
Oh
from here.
wow! Yeah.
And we had a principal, and he coined a term that we heard 3 times a day. It was on all of our merchandise, your gym bags, your gym suits, every piece of literature that ever came out. You're better than the best. We heard it every day. Better than the best. Better than the best. That positive affirmation, and you could take it 2 ways. One, you know, as good as they are, you're better, or you're better than the best you did today.
Mm-hmm.
That there's going to be a tomorrow. But I think there's a certain healthiness. And you know what, Cynthia, that 1B, so what? Because I wish that I could say I got all A's, you know. I wish I could say I had all B's, but you know, I was never accused of being a student, so that they never made that accusation when it came to me. I was enrolled in the institution. When they talked about students, it's like, well, he's not really. But that pressure, you know, and that's normal. I mean, that is that drive. We compete with other human beings, you know, and that was with the little guy, you know. I don't know. If you get a lot of positive affirmation, my goddaughter's 5, but you know her reading level is you can't even do text now. What was the letters they used when it was a parent looking over your shoulder? We first started texting, and there was something came out with LOL, but it was something like your parents are looking over your shoulders when they were texting or they were on the computer. So she can read your text.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I'm talking about, you know, polysyllabic words. She's reading it at 5. And I just thought about, like, part of why she loves reading so much is that when you read with her, she's getting positive affirmation.
Yeah.
You know, and the reason why I love reading so much is one of my earliest memories with my mom was her reading to me. And I couldn't wait to learn how to read. You know, it was just like, wow, get my first library card, and actually went to the library and got books.
And going back
Wow.
to environment and nurturing and all of the things you were talking about earlier, You know, you're still reading how many years later? Only 20, I know, like 25
couple
years
years ago,
old.
Well, my goddaughter, she was looking, she saw all these books, and she said, "Oh, you have all these books."
Yeah,
And
I love it.
I love books.
You know, you're making me think about my niece right now.
Right.
She just turned 7 yesterday.
okay.
Happy birthday, Emma. But when she's little, you know, I would traveling around for education and stuff like that. And whenever she's little, I would teach her new things, you know, on FaceTime, the beauty of FaceTime. And I would say, what do you want to learn today? And she would choose a topic and we'd always learn something. And now at this age, she says, hey, Aunt, I want to learn something today. And, you know, it impacts people so much. But yeah, I think it's a beautiful
the bonding,
thing.
that thing where you're able to do that. You're now here's the flip side of that. My mother used what would you call it? Aversion training when it came to math. My mother was very good at numbers, so her expectations were her kids would be very good at numbers. And so my mother would punish us for not being able to do like sequences, right? Like I started counting, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 9. 2 licks, and have to start all over again. So that I hated numbers after that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think she she created the love for reading and the thirst for knowledge, but then she also created this kind of hatred of numbers that I had when I associated with how I'd learned that.
Yeah.
I mean, my reading was very positive and affirming, and it was something very different with math. I don't think she ever realized that what it was. She just thought I was being lazy. She thought I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
No, after a while, it's the licks. I'm more focused on the licks than I mean, it wasn't like abuse. I don't want anybody to think that. But that was her. That's what she thought. Like if I can get you. And some of that then gets into some cultural things in terms of there's some people when we have arguments or discussions about corporal punishment.
Yeah.
There are some of us who believe that a lot of that is just one of those byproducts of enslavement. And that's how you discipline. But when you discipline a child, it's to correct behavior. Right.
It's also tougher to sit down and have the conversations when you have a million things on your plate.
There you go.
And you're stressed and you have to pay the bills and you have to make dinner and you have to take care of the other kid and this one needs to go to the dentist and whatever. You know, you're so stressed, you're so overwhelmed that sometimes it's a little bit of lazy parenting. I don't want to say it, but it is, you know, like let's just do that and fix it right there and they'll know better. But in reality, do they know better? Because it often does happen again.
And I think the other thing is my mother, and great credit to her, I don't know where she got this from. She said, I will not discipline you in anger, because if I discipline you in anger, I'm going to kill you because I'm angry and I'm not being sober, you know, and people,
That's true.
and it's really amazing because when we work with Black men, we talk about the ability to express emotions. The one emotion that they feel free to express is anger.
Right.
You can't express fear. You can't. The interesting thing about our buddy dying was to see men just emotionally release, because we're taught against that. I mean, it's that. But that impacts our mental health. So if you're sitting around, as you said, always having to be strong and you'll work your way through it, you might not.
Yeah.
You might not.
That's why you need to come, everybody, to Wellness Wonderland.
When?
September 7th, 12 to 4 p.m.
Where?
2400 West Villard Avenue. Also, we have a few more shout outs. So let me shout them out real quick here. Twisted Plants. They're going to be providing us with some delicious vegetarian options. And then we have Dairyland and Midway Bakery, another one of our supporters who was with us last year as well. And they are providing us with sandwiches as well as some very special Wellness Wonderland ice cream. So if you're interested to know what flavors that is, you'll have to come out and see, because I'm not going to tell you here.
And we also have Camaria Yemeni Cafe. Have you heard of them?
No.
that's my second home. I literally go there and study every night.
Okay.
But they have amazing coffee and tea and refreshers that they came up for the summer as well. They'll be providing us with Yemeni Adni chai at the event. It's very aromatic and, very delicious. So you guys should try that out. A little bit about Camaria. So they just recently opened up, and they are a single bean origin company. So that means that there's one farm in Yemen. That's where they get all of their coffee beans from. And there's a process where they infuse certain spices into these coffee beans. So flavors are amazing. You guys should definitely go check them out. They're in Greenfield, and come for the Adni chai.
Come for it all, because it's
Come
going to
for
be
it all,
amazing.
yeah.
And
When?
fun. John,
September 7th.
September 7th,
Where?
12 to 4, 2400 West Villard Avenue.
53209.
In the old nine. Let me thank Dr. Marani, Dr. Carter,
Thank you.
Dr. Ali.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being part of Be Healthy, Be You. Debo, thank you. Carby, thank you. Good Lord willing, Creek don't rise. Hope to talk to everybody tomorrow. And as always, go from this place in peace. You guys will-